professional life. So you may be coming at social media from all sorts of different directions, but I will hopefully today give you some ways to think about it that you might not have thought about it before. Let's see. I want to, oh, come on. I want to let you know that I'm going to be presenting today, slides or no slides, on the concept of engaging in social media as opposed to the how-to about engaging in social media. So I'm not going to teach you how to tweet today. I'm not going to show you how to set up a Facebook page. Those things are not difficult to do, and there's zillions of resources all over the net that will show you how to do those things. And I know that you are resourceful people and you can do that for yourselves. You probably have friends and neighbors who can show you those things. It's not a good use of your time in this setting. In this setting, I want to talk to you about why you, as people who are leading from the middle, need to be engaging in social media. Hooray! And a piece of that I'll come to at more length in a minute is it's important to share. Sharing is a really valuable thing. And so the reason that I'm recording this session today is so that I can share it with other people later. If I didn't record it, the only people who would hear it is you. And while I'm sure that that would be fabulous in and of itself, won't it be even better when other people get to hear it? And other people get to maybe dwell on some of these ideas. And if you think that I say something useful today, you know what? You could share it too. So it just ends up being a whole sharing ecosystem, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And I'm not even going to challenge this by trying to get into the actual viewing thing. Let me just see if I can do it this way. So I want to see who is here. I don't want to make any assumptions about this crowd. How many people use social media tools all the time? Okay, about a third of you. How many people use it a few days a week? Okay. How many people maybe a couple times a month? And how many people not at all, really? Okay. So people are all over the map. And that's good. It's good to be coming at it from different places, because I think when I give you the opportunity to do a little bit of chatting amongst yourselves, you'll have some different perspectives to come at it from. So I asked everybody to bring your devices. I actually want you to be on your devices, engaging, sharing during this session. And I have a couple of ways that you can do that. I have created a shared Google Doc, and this is the short URL to get there. And you can use that for taking notes. And I've already gotten it started with a question that I'll have you answer in just a minute. So work your way to this document. I'd also encourage you to engage in a back channel that I've set up in a tool called Today's Meet, which is a Twitter-like tool. But instead of trying to have everybody set up a Twitter account and get out there and tweet and learn how to tweet, that just seemed like not a good use of our time today. So rather, I'm going to have you use Today's Meet. There's the short URL to get there. And Today's Meet, are people familiar with the idea of a back channel? No. Remember in grade school when you would write a little note to your friend, do you think the teacher is crazy? Yeah, I think the teacher is crazy. And you would share those little notes back and forth. A back channel is sort of like that, except for you can all be passing notes about your thoughts about this presentation, about what points you thought were useful, the points you think that are bad, the questions that you have about what I'm saying. You can put all of that in 140 characters or less in Today's Meet. And everybody else can see what people are saying and respond to that and riff off of that. And that's cool. And some people might think yikes, doesn't that mean people aren't going to be paying attention to you? I'm not worried about that, actually. You guys are grown-ups, and your brains are complex things. I think you can listen to me and type things at the same time. So engage in the back channel. If you happen to be a person who's on Twitter, I invite you to tweet. I just created a hashtag. I don't know if people have been tweeting already about this session and already have a hashtag. If you do, keep with that. But if you don't have a hashtag going yet, here it is. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. If you want to mention me in your tweets, this is my Twitter handle. So I just mentioned that I was going to have you do something using that Google Doc. I want you to tell me, why are you involved in higher education? Just give me a word or two. And you can do that either in today's meet or using the Google Doc. And just take 2 minutes to access that tool that you want to try. 2 minutes, you could even do both. Yeah?
I can't get onto it. I don't know none of it.
Yeah, I can't get onto it either. The Google Doc.
The Google Doc or today's meet? You did. This is all what? Bitly, LFM, social media?
Yeah, I can't get it.
It's the network?
I tried. It took 4 times.
Oh.
I think it's the internet.
I'm sorry. Well, let's hope that that will let you in eventually. Let me have a look. I have them pulled up and see if anybody was able to get to them. Oh, don't worry about trying to reconnect. That's not good. The resources I'll be talking about are on this resource sheet, but this is the document that I want you to put your notes on, assuming that you're able to get to it. And it'll link you to the other documents that I have related to it. All right, and here's what the today's meet looks like. So some people got up there, assisting students in completing their goals, finding options for students, make a difference in the lives of others. Yeah?
What was the hashtag again? Sorry.
What was the hashtag again? LFM 2014?
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Let me get back to my presentation, which was here. Oh, yeah. Alrighty. So, given that you guys have some reasons for engaging in higher media, or in higher ed, I want to start off, I'm going to come back to that, don't worry, I'm not going to forget it. I'm going to come back to it, but I want to start with this quote from Douglas Adams, who said that everything in the world that was already there when you were born is just normal. And anything that gets excited or gets invented between then and when you turn 30 is incredibly exciting and creative, and with any luck you can make a career out of it. And anything that gets created after you're 30 is against the natural order of things and the beginning of the end of civilization as we know it, until it's been around for about 10 years, and when it turns out it might be okay. So I think a lot of people feel that way about social media. It's bad, it can't be good, I don't know, look at those young kids, they won't get off their phones. And I have a video about that. And I hope I can show you the video. Let's see. Oh, don't mute. Play. I'll only do, oh, here we go.
Social media is great.
Oh, you can only hear my computer, huh?
And the people you love.
there's another.
You can chat with your family or share a meal with friends and watch cute little cats do unbelievable things.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box.
Look, she sticks her head out of the box. But there are times when social media can get in the way of the real world. Remember that? It's the thing that happens when you run out of battery. That's why we developed the Social Media Guard. It takes the social out of media and puts it back into your life. Let's see how it works.
Oh, come on. Well, it continues along that vein of people discovering each other, engaging personally, and the message there is that you shouldn't get too caught up in social media, that it's better that we engage face-to-face, doing things in the old-fashioned way. And I'm not going to say that we don't want to engage in... Oh. Go ahead, play.
Social Media Guard. Get yours now.
Okay, so I want to tell you that this presentation on social media is not about the tools. It's not about the technology. It's about relationships. It's about the way that you and I can engage with each other. And we're not going to talk all that much about tools today, because we're going to talk about ways that you can use social media to build relationships, and that's what we're using the tools for. Nothing else. It's about relationships. So I want to try to make a case for social media. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, the Washington Canvas Users Group, and there at WACUG, I was in a session with a couple of people, and our name tags, the way they had them designed, everybody's flipped over backwards. And so when we're sitting in this little group of people, we didn't actually see the names of the people we were standing around talking to. Pretty much everybody's had flipped over backwards. And we were talking about, I don't know, some way that we could use a Canvas to help students, and sharing ideas in the way that one does in a session. And at the end, we'd sort of done what the presenter had asked us to do, and we're just chatting, and one of the people said, oh, you know, what's your name? And so I flipped over my name badge, and she looked at it, and she said, oh, you're famous. And I said, really? She said, I read your blog. I said, you're kidding. She said, no, I really enjoy it. Several other people at my college read your blog as well, and we've all gotten really good teaching ideas from it. This is what this is about. That some person who I have never met before I was able to make a connection with this person, a connection that I would not have made otherwise, because I had shared some stuff about my teaching that was able to be helpful to her and hers. And I start with that story because I think that we as higher ed leaders have an obligation to share what it is that we do, to share some of the stuff that we think about, to share some of the things that we observe, some of the questions that we have with our colleagues. Because have you ever been sort of sitting around in a group and shared just one observation? They said, oh, that same thing happens to me. And you feel a little sense of collegiality. And if somebody else from the table has those same problems, you can sort of form around them and maybe find some solutions. Maybe somebody else has already solved it. And by just happening to have mentioned it, they can say, oh, you know what I did, and this worked out really well. And then suddenly you've got a solution to a problem that had been stumping you for a while. And you think, wow, thank goodness I mentioned that to that person. You can use social media to create all sorts of those serendipitous moments where you're getting to solve those problems. And what I saw when people were talking about why they are involved in higher ed is because you like to solve problems. Not just your problems, but you like to solve the problems of students and help them get to where they're going. And I'm relatively certain that you can all be convinced of the fact that you by yourself, while brilliant, could be made even more brilliant when you're talking to your peers. The more people, up to a certain point, who engage around a problem, the better the solutions you come to. But there's only so much you can do at your own table or in your own department or even in your own college. When you're reaching out to a broader audience of people at the other colleges like you're doing here today, I bet you're coming up with solutions to things that had been stumping you, and you're seeing examples at other colleges where that problem has been solved, and you think, wow, I'm going to take that back to my college and try that. I bet you've come across several things like that in the last couple of days. And think if you were reaching out to a broader audience that's not just other people at this big table, but other people on the whole planet. How can that not be a better thing? How can that not help you to find really fabulous solutions for your students? You have an obligation as higher ed leaders who want to make life better for your students to be seeking answers in all the places where they can be found. Yes.
Stephanie, what is the best kind of social media to use to engage? Because I don't like Twitter because of the character limitations. I don't find it terribly practical. I like LinkedIn and Facebook best simply because I can narrative away and not worry about limitations, and I get a detailed answer back rather than 140 character limitation, which doesn't do me much good.
I will come to the answer to your question before this presentation is over.
I'll hold my question. Thanks.
It will all winnow down to the tool, but I don't want to start with the tool. I want to read a quote to you guys from this book, which I love this book. If you only read one book on social media, I would recommend this. It's called Public Parks by Jeff Jarvis. And he really puts the whole, you don't have to write this down because it's on that shared Google Doc. So but Public Parks by Jeff Jarvis. He notes, ideas are having sex with each other as never before, science journalist Matt Ridley writes in the Wall Street Journal in his book, The Rational Optimist. He argues that the leap forward humans took over other species 45,000 years ago did not come from the big bang of human consciousness inside our heads. Instead, he maintains, it came from our public interaction, our invention of tools and our trade in them, which led to the development of a collective intelligence. Ridley contends that all the ingredients of human success, tool making, big brains, culture, fire, even language, seem to have been in place 500,000 years before and nothing happened. Neanderthals had brains bigger than ours, but yet they did not farm or make economic progress. Nomadic people did not settle and advance. And then suddenly, bang! Culture exploded, starting in Africa, he says. It turned out that what determines inventiveness and the rate of cultural change of a population is the amount of interaction between individuals. That is, our publicness and our connectedness bring progress. I thought that was powerful. The way that we interact with each other, the amount of time we spend interacting with each other will better get us to those solutions that we seek for our students and ourselves. So I hope that that persuades you that you should at least think about maybe engaging in social media as a way to build those relationships and seek those interactions. So another book I read in preparation for this was Groundswell, which talks about how and why business should engage in social media. And he really takes it from the perspective, or they really take it from the perspective of very much nuts and bolts. Where is the financial value in spending time engaging in social media? Because doesn't it seem like it's just, looking at fun kitten videos? But it's not. There's more to it. And he talks about different ways that people engage in social media. And I thought that this was sort of interesting. And as you're going through this, hopefully you're thinking, okay, I'm convinced that I want to do this, but how am I going to do it? And why, how am I going to target this? So I'm hoping to give you some information to be able to think those thoughts about that. That's where I'm going right now. So creators are people who are creating. They may be writing blogs and wikis and putting original content up on the web. Conversationalists are people who are maybe updating their status on Facebook, who are maybe posting a little tweet about what they're doing. Those are conversationalists. And the critics post things like ratings and reviews on things like Amazon. They might comment on blogs or contribute to forums and edit wikis. Collectors are people who try to organize information on the web. They use RSS feeds. They vote on websites. They add tags to information. They may organize lists of links. Joiners maintain profiles on social networks and maybe join social networking tools like Facebook. Spectators. I bet many of you fall into this category. They read blogs, listen to podcasts, watch videos, read online forums, and tweet. And then there's the inactives, the people who don't do anything, not engaged in any of those activities. In a sort of overall survey of American adults, the highest ones are spectators at 68% and joiners at 59%. And as you're sort of thinking in the back of your head, how do I want to do this? In what ways do I want to engage? It might be helpful to think, where are the people that I want to communicate with at? What kinds of people do I think they are? And can I communicate with them in the way that they might want to be communicated with? Does that make sense? Okay. Why is it that particular slide? It's can't play right now. All right. Well, the one it's not going to show you talks about about rationales that you might have for engaging in social media. One is to listen, just to hear what people have to say about anything. Maybe you've tossed out a question like, what's the best social media tool? And you want to hear back from people, and you listen and hear what that is. Another is to communicate out. You want to share your message with people. Another is to energize people, to get enthusiastic people to share your message for you. Another is supporting, to give people a forum for supporting each other. And finally, embracing is to bring other people into your process of creating, taking in people's ideas about a new department that you might form or a new program that you might have for solving student problems. So those are the different types of ways that you might want to think about engaging in social media, and you want to think a little bit about that when you're trying to decide how you want to engage. And I want to give you just, again, maybe 2 minutes to turn to your neighbor and talk for just a minute about, given different types of ways of engaging in social media and different reasons that you might want to do it. Is anything percolating in your brain right now? Is there anything you're thinking, I might try it for this reason, or I've seen somebody else do it for that reason, and that might be something I might want to try? Just spend a moment amongst yourselves. It's true. Okay. Okay. Come back to here. So, while there's lots and lots of ways and reasons that you might engage through social media, given the limit in time that I had today, I decided I would try to winnow it down to like 2 things. And so these are the 2 things that I decided to winnow it down to. I'm not saying that these 2 suggestions are better than anything else, but that I thought that they might encompass what most people would probably want to do, and that as I talk about these, they might help you to think about other things that you might want. So, thing 1, you could share what you know. Because you're all smart cookies. And being smart and having really great ideas, if they're all in your head, is really almost useless. You need to get it out. You need to tell other people about those ideas so they can do something with them, so that you guys can maybe do something together with them. Holding the ideas close to the chest, it's just not terribly useful. And the more people who hear about them and know them and can share them and spread them, assuming that they're good ideas, the better things are. So one thing you can do is share what you know. Another thing that you can do is listen to what other people know and do something with that information. And so we're going to talk a little bit about both of those and how you can come into those. So if you are somebody who has not been engaging in social media or has been doing it very little, the first thing that you might want to do is just observe. Like when you come into the room of a party at a place with people that you don't know a single person in the room, and you don't know anybody, and you walk in, you just stand there for a few minutes to get the read of the room, figure out who's there, and what they're doing, and make sure you're dressed right, and all of that stuff. So that may be, if you haven't been doing it, I wouldn't recommend you go set up a zillion accounts and jump right in and start throwing stuff out onto the web. You might make a fool of yourself, which is fine. We all do it. But it might behoove you to just sort of step in and observe the room first. I was listening to an interview with the guy who started Twitter. And this is actually how he uses Twitter, is he just observes. He follows a bunch of people, and he just pretty much watches what they say. He says very little himself. Not using Twitter to put the messages out, just watching Twitter, using Twitter to watch what's going on in the world. And that is okay. Lurking is fun. And it's a great way to get started and get familiar with things and build up your confidence in yourself as you think about how you want to engage in this way. The benefit is that you'll start to learn some stuff. You'll learn how it works, but you'll also learn about the information that's flowing. Start following people who are interesting to you, people who are saying interesting things, and look at who they follow. All of this is public. You can see who's following them and who they're following, and maybe you'll find somebody else and, oh, that person's got something interesting to say. Let me follow them. And start developing some networks in that way. You'll get a chance to let your own thoughts about the various tools develop, whether it's following people on Twitter, reading what people are posting up on Facebook, sharing in a couple of circles on Google+, all sorts of different things that you can do in the observation stage. Oh. Well, the next slide has two adorable little boys sharing a big ice cream cone. And the next thing I tell you can do is you can share. You can share out the things that you're finding. When you lurk, you'll see stuff and you'll think, oh, I bet that there's people who could benefit from this thing I just saw. If you were on Twitter, you could retweet it. If you're on Facebook, you can post it to your wall or to somebody else's wall. If you're in email, which can some people unfortunately use as a social media tool, you can forward to other people. But sharing, just taking in things and giving them to others. There's just a lot to be said for sharing and for generosity. And it almost always comes back to benefit you later in ways that you couldn't even possibly imagine. I mean, just little things like that connection I talked about at the conference. Somebody that I didn't know, suddenly I knew, or at least she knew me, and I got a chance to know her. These types of things that you just might not expect, just popping up. And I'll talk in a minute about some ways that I think my management has benefited from social media, but it almost all comes from being willing to share. I have a blog called Stephanie Plans a Class, where I began blogging my course preparation process. I don't think I even mentioned what I do. I'm the Dean for Extended Learning at Seattle Central Community College, and Extended Learning includes e-learning and continuing ed and teacher training. But I've only been doing this for a couple of months. I just started in February. Before that, for many, many years, I've been solely in e-learning. And so a lot of people know me as related to online stuff and technical stuff, but I want to tell you that this is not online and technical things. But it's one of the reasons that I felt compelled to jump in it when as an introverted person, I might not have necessarily been inclined to do so originally, but I felt like it was sort of my job to learn how to use these tools. And now that I know, I want everybody to use these tools. But, you know, I decided to start sharing with people how I plan an online class. And this really took off with people. I was just doing it to share with my faculty, really, at my college. But now there's about 300 people who read this blog on a somewhat regular basis. And many people have reported back to me how useful they've found it to their own teaching practice. But the first things that I got back from people was, it's so bold of you to share your teaching practice with others. And I thought, what is that saying about the way that we teach, that it's such a private and individual and concealed behind closed doors thing, that when somebody opens it up to the light, that person is thought to be bold? And isn't that a little bit sad? We really need to open all of this up to the light so that it's more normal that we're talking to each other than thought of as being bold, that we're sharing what we do in our everyday practice. That's a hope I have. And I know that there's a fear associated with that. People are afraid that if they share the way they do things, people might see that they're not perfect. People might identify a mistake or two. And frankly, I'm out there about my mistakes. Sometimes I do a really horrible job on stuff. But hopefully I'm learning from that. And I'm okay with sharing that with people, because sometimes if I share the way I did something terribly, somebody else might be able to share a solution with me that I hadn't thought of and help me to not do it terribly again the next time. But if I just keep it a secret and hope it doesn't come out on my evaluations, or if I just keep it a secret and hope my boss doesn't notice that I forgot to do this one really important thing, you know, no good comes of that. Things that are kept in secret almost always come out. We should be doing our jobs as public servants in a way that should be able to be seen by the public. And if we're not, maybe we're doing something wrong. You know, if you're doing stuff you don't want people to know you're doing. So after you share, you might be feeling a little bit more bold to be able to put out some stuff that you did yourself. You know, create some content. Tell people about what you're doing. Write a blog. Put up a wiki. Do something where something that came out of your head is going out there into the ether and letting people benefit from that. I want to show you some examples of what other higher ed leaders are doing. So, is anybody here from Lower Columbia? Nobody? All right. Chris Bailey at Lower Columbia makes fabulous use of Facebook. And on the Google Doc, I've got a link to Chris Bailey's Facebook page. And he'll post things like, hey, the LCC basketball team just won its game. He'll have a little picture of somebody going in for a hoop. And I feel this great sense of connection to LCC that I just shouldn't have, because I've only been there once. And, you know, but I now find that I feel like I have a relationship with that college just from following Chris Bailey on his Facebook page. And remember when I said at the beginning it's all about relationships? I feel very fondly about Lower Columbia. If I saw a job at Lower Columbia, I might be more inclined to apply there, even though it's way in the heck far away if you live in Seattle. You know, I feel a connection to that college now. And if you want to see one interesting way to use Facebook as a higher ed leader, go look at Chris Bailey's Facebook page and friend him. Some good stuff. Skip that one. Lee Lambert. Lee's not with us anymore in the system. Lee is the former president of Shoreline Community College, but he is now at Pima Community College. But Lee makes really great use of Twitter. And as I was asking other higher ed leaders about who they like to follow, almost everybody mentioned Lee Lambert as a person you should be following. So I would commend to you Lee Lambert's Twitter feed.
And why should we follow him?
Why should you follow Lee Lambert?
Because everyone else is?
Because everybody else is. And that is a great question. Because if you follow somebody because everybody else is, which often people do, you can start to see, do you see any value in what everybody else is doing? Because if, 10 people that you follow are also following Lee Lambert, you think, oh, maybe I should follow Lee Lambert. So you follow him, right? And then you think, I'm not really behind what he's saying, or this isn't really adding any value to my life. And then you unfollow them. It's just that straightforward and simple. And I would encourage you to be active in your following and unfollowing. if you're reading stuff in your Twitter feed that is not giving you value, or if you're seeing posts of people in your Facebook stream that you just wish you weren't reading, well, then stop reading it. You don't have all the time in the world. Weed those people out and just have the ones that are bringing value, and hope that yours is one of those that's giving other people value, giving other people something that they want to read. Eric Murray at Cascadia. Do we have anybody from Cascadia here? Yay! I am a former Cascadian. So Eric Murray does a Friday letter on a blog in the internal intranet there at Cascadia. And he very kindly sent me 3 examples of some of his recent Friday letters that I linked up on the Google Doc. But this seems to me a really great way to reach out to people too. He started this when he started as a new president at Cascadia a few years ago, and just really helped establish who he was and create, I think, a sense of relationship with him that would have been really hard to establish, one person at a time throughout the college. But you really got a sense of who he was and what was important to him and how he was responding to the issues that were, that were coming before the college in a very sort of personal way that I just thought was really powerful. And I think that that's a really great way to communicate internally with your audience. If you've got a lot of people reporting to you, it's a great way, especially if you're new in your role, or if you're changing a role, or if you're changing the way that you're doing things in a pretty big way, and you want to sort of establish some comfort around that. I think this could be a really great way to do that. So Eric Murray and his blog, I think, is another way that you could communicate out with people. So now I'm going to get to the big question. What should I use? Should I tweet? Should I go on Facebook? Should I set up a blog? Should I create a wiki? Should I join Google+? Maybe I should be on Instagram. Good grief, what should I do? Well, let me, hopefully, show you a little bit of what I do and explain why I'm doing it. So I'm on Twitter, and I'm going to start off with a little confession. I know a lot of people complain that they might spend too much time on social media, but I really feel like I don't spend enough time. And I'm always sort of beating myself up a little bit that I don't spend more time engaged in social media. That's something that is a personal goal of mine, is to actually spend a lot more time than I currently do engaged in social media. But here you are seeing my Twitter stream and the types of people that I'm following right now, and who I've got 76 people who I'm following 76. I've got 153 people who follow me. I've tweeted 424 times, one of which was just before this presentation, where I told people that I am presenting today. And let me see if it's in here. Might be a while back here. So there I am, telling people I'm about to present. Show them where they can get my slides if they wanted to see what I'm presenting on. I'm thanking Eric Murray and Chris Bailey for giving me permission to share their stuff with you guys. So that's one way that one could use Twitter. And I just use it as a way to, I spend a lot of time, if I'm at conferences, I'll retweet I'll tweet what I'm hearing, and I'll retweet what other people are saying about the event that I'm at. This has been really helpful for my colleagues, and I find following them to be equally helpful at events that I don't get to go to. and I sort of want to see what's going on. I can read their tweets and get a sense of what happened in those events. I also use Twitter as a way to reach out to people that that I might not have felt comfortable maybe making an actual connection with. I'll follow them on Twitter. I might tweet something at them that I think they would particularly be interested in. And you can actually create, relationships in that way. I was at a conference last fall where this guy gave a presentation that just blew my mind. It was amazing. And I presented a few minutes after him, and I was like, here was this really fabulous guy, and then here's me. But I tweeted that I just thought that his presentation and his ideas were just really, really amazing. And then I got up and I gave my presentation. When I sat back down to make a little tweet, I saw that he had tweeted back, "Thank you for thinking that his ideas were amazing, and wow, he thought my ideas were really amazing too." Which sort of gave me the confidence to go up and talk to him after the sessions. And we ended up having a lovely conversation. I might not have had the nerve to go talk to him if he hadn't tweeted to me. And there was that connection that, might not have otherwise happened. And now, we're following each other on Twitter, and I get to continue to see his great ideas even though the conference is long over. LinkedIn, of course. Come on, you can do it. LinkedIn is great for all connections, for sharing those great stories that you read in Chronicle of Higher Ed, for seeing what people are doing, for letting people know the opportunities that are available at your college, for reaching out to people about what opportunities are available at their colleges when you're ready to move on. All sorts of ways that you can use LinkedIn amongst your professional network, and really sort of expand the ways that you can stay linked with each other. And all of these services sort of hook together, so you can set it up so that anything that you tweet shows up on your LinkedIn stream, or vice versa. So you don't have to be jumping from place to place to place all the time. There's tools that allow you to organize these things. But if you're not on LinkedIn, if you only do one thing, you should at least have a LinkedIn profile so that people can find you and figure out who you are. And lots of people do that, especially if you're going to conferences or in the larger statewide meetings, and they're wanting to know a little bit more. Maybe you had a little sidewalk or hallway conversation, and I think I want to know a little bit more about that person. The place where people go to learn a little bit more about you is LinkedIn, and if you're not there, that's really sad. Get a LinkedIn profile, people, please. Pinterest. Now, you might not think, for professional purposes, really? Pinterest? But our personal lives and our professional lives frequently overlap. We are not two different people. We are one person. And I think that it's important that the two keep integrated. And if anybody has ever been at a meeting with me, you know that I knit at meetings. And I like making connections with other people who knit at meetings. And so I made a Pinterest board called I Knit at Meetings. And I put up patterns that I think would be fun to knit at a meeting. This particularly because it's small. Small things are good to make at meetings because they don't take up much space. So anyways, I think it's fun to let people know a little bit about who you are, about what makes you interesting, especially if you can tie that into what makes you amazing in your workplace as well. Because I think the thing that helps me when I knit at meetings is it helps me to hear. If my hands are busy, my brain is free to think about what people are talking about, and I'm able to put things together in different ways that enables me to come up with good ideas, which makes people think I'm really brilliant when I'm not. I'm just knitting. So there's ways that you can use sort of tools that you might not have thought of as professional tools, like Instagram and Pinterest, in a professional way. And of course, there's Facebook. Now, I use Facebook really more for personal stuff, but I have a lot of work friends that I'm friends with in Facebook. And so I wanted to spend a second thinking about who are you going to connect with on these different things. And that's a question that you want to ask yourself, because you want to be sort of thoughtful about who you're adding because you want what they're posting to have value to you. So on Facebook, I only friend people that I actually think of as a friend. You know, if I would have them over to my house to hang out with me and my child and my spouse, then I'll friend them on Facebook. But if I, barely know them, or, we're not actually friends, then I don't friend them on Facebook. I don't want them seeing that my little boy, just recently we got a hot tub at my house. And I haven't had much time to use it because there have been children in it. I don't share that with everybody. If I don't want to share with you that my kid just hit a home run or that we're going to be, doing some yard work, then I don't want you to be my friend on Facebook. Not that I don't like you, but maybe our relationship would be more appropriate on LinkedIn or, in Twitter. So when you're making those connections, on Twitter I'm pretty ruthless about only following people who really add value to my Twitter stream, which is relatively long already. I don't want to add anything frivolous to it. And also there's not sort of I don't feel like there's as much of a personal link that I have in my use of Twitter. So when I cut people off, I don't feel bad about it. And then LinkedIn, I'll pretty much connect with anybody as long as I feel like I sort of know them. Or there's actually lots of people like you all might leave this. I don't know any of you, I don't think, or at least very few of you. And some of you may reach out to me on LinkedIn after this session and ask to connect with me. And if I can sort of see, like, oh, this person's from a college in my state, they've probably maybe seen me speak, or maybe they know someone who knows me, I'll connect. But if it's some, like, marketing person from the East Coast, I don't connect with them. So, you can come up with your own set of rules for who you're going to connect with and why. But just make sure that you're thoughtful about it. If you connect with everybody all the time, you're going to get overwhelmed. And the next piece we go to after you select your tools is how do you manage all the information flow? Let's see. That's not what I want. Where'd my presentation go? There we go. I've been running out of time, weren't I?
We said that we shorted you, so
okay.
Go for it for a while more.
So one thing that you might want to do is aggregate the information. As I mentioned, you don't necessarily, sometimes the way that you think it may be useful to sort of go from tool to tool to tool, just so that you can keep it clear in your head where you are and how you're communicating and why. And that's okay. Go ahead and do that. But if you don't want to go from tool to tool to tool, there's lots of things out there that will aggregate all of your different accounts in a single type of tool. And if you just go on to Google and type social media aggregator or social media manager, it will pop up a zillion of them. And I'm not going to recommend one because when I recommend things, people just go use them. And it might be great for me in the way that I use tools, but it might not work at all for the way that you do things. So I want you to think about this critically. And here are some of the things that you might want to consider. Well, one, that it works with the social media tools that you're planning to use. If you really, really love Google Plus and the one that you pick doesn't support Google Plus, then that's not really going to be very helpful. Make sure that it's available on all the devices that you want to use. Maybe the only device you want to use is your computer. And if so, that makes everything really easy. But maybe you want to use your computer and your phone and your iPod and your Android tablet. Well, if you want to use all of those, you're going to have a more robust tool. So think about where you want to be engaging in social media and make sure that your aggregator works on those things. And then just make sense that it makes sense to you. If you get in and try to use it and it doesn't make any sense and you feel like you have to go take a class to figure out how to use it, then that's not your tool. It should just make sense. It should be intuitive. And if none of them are intuitive, then maybe you should make one that makes sense to you, because I bet there's an audience of people out there who are ready for that tool. So just don't, I think a lot of people who come to technology as not a native, or if you don't use a lot of technology, people feel like if they can't use it, it must be them. That's not true. There's just some really bad tools out there. So don't assume that if it doesn't make sense to you that it's you. If it doesn't make sense to you, try a different tool. There's a lot of them out there, and find ones that make sense to you. Some recommendations, just places that you might start, but don't say, well, Stephanie said I should use that, so I'm going to. Flipboard. Now, people don't always think of this as an aggregator, but really that's what it is. And Flipboard's installed on a lot of stuff. It's just sort of a default app, so it's really easy for people to get to, and you can hook up your Facebook and your Twitter and your LinkedIn and your favorite tools, and it looks so pretty. So I'm a big fan of recommending Flipboard, especially to newbies, because it's super easy to use and it looks so nice. Seismic is much more industrial, especially if you're putting information out. Flipboard is really just a watching tool. It's hard, you can't really do a lot of posting from Flipboard, but if you are both absorbing in and putting out, you want to have something a little bit more robust, and Seismic and TweetDeck fall into that more robust category of tools where you can both bring in things and put things out. And if you want to sort of put out the same piece of information to 5 different, the LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all at one time, those tools will let you do that. So keep in mind that you can aggregate, and that I recommend that you do. So that's the first step to managing your time. The second step is I would really recommend turning off the distractions. The little pop-up things that say, Josie, just repinned your pin. I don't care. Really. That is not adding value to my life, to know that Josie repinned my pins. I turn off notifications in almost every tool, including my email. Because when I'm ready to engage in email, I engage in email. I don't need it popping up all the time, because it's going to distract me. I'm easily distractible already. Why would I want to add to that? So even on my computer, I don't have a little thing pop up showing that such and such just sent me an email, because I'll never get anything done. When it's time to do email, I do email. When it's not time to do email, I don't want to know about it. So turn those off. They're quite seductive. They will lead you down a dark and dirty path. And you can find those settings. In the settings of almost any tool will allow you to turn those notifications off. When your iPad says, oh, wants to send you push notifications, say, no! I don't want those push notifications. They're just distracting. Set aside time. Since you don't have the push notifications telling you all the time, hey, you've got this, set aside some time when you go to engage in your social media tools. And then when you're not in that time, if you're one of those people who can easily be dragged down the rabbit hole, if you're not in that time, then just don't do it. If you set yourself sort of a little social media budget at the beginning, then you can avoid getting overly sucked in. But if you're not one of those people, and you're one of the people in my camp of like, oh, I got to do it more often, actually, you don't have to worry about setting a budget. But have a mission. Maybe the reason, my personal mission is to share. I just want to put stuff out there that I think might be useful to people. And that makes me feel good. Sometimes it makes them feel good. That's my mission. Share. I share other people's stuff. I share my stuff. I share things I randomly come across. I just want to share. I just like that. Have your own mission. Why are you doing this? If you don't have a reason, you want to wait a minute until you have one. Because otherwise, you'll feel frustrated and like you're spinning your wheels, and why are you doing this? So when you say, why are you doing this, you should have a reason. Because I want to share, or because I want to improve my game, or because I want to see what other people are thinking in my field. Or because there's this other field that I'm interested in, but I don't know how to get started, so I'm going to follow people who do that thing so I can see what they're thinking. Have a reason. And let that reason keep you focused. That can help you manage your time. And then there's always the old-fashioned default of just set a timer. And when it's done, stop. So, that's about what I wanted to tell you about social media today. I hope that I've persuaded you that you should at least think about it if you haven't been. And that if you have pondered it but don't do it very often, that maybe you can see why as... Oh, I forgot to mention to you, let me segue for half a minute before I wrap up and take your questions. I wanted to talk a little bit about why I thought this helped my leadership game. How do I think that being a person who shares and who engages in social media makes me a better leader? And I had 3 examples that I think just show recently ways that my leadership has benefited. Example number 1 is my LMS administrator, my Canvas administrator, who helps make sure that our Canvas instance continues to work. When I got to the college, he, was working away and doing fabulous work in the little isolation of our department. Nobody else knew what fabulous work he was doing. Nobody else at the college knew what fabulous work he was doing, let alone other people in the district or in the state. Nobody knew. Here's this fabulous guy doing amazing work, and nobody knew. And I decided people should know. This guy is great. So I started bringing him with me to statewide meetings and encouraging him to participate in these statewide activities. And slowly but surely, as other people got to know him and agreed and echoed that he's amazing, it built his confidence. And he started doing even more amazing things and getting to be even more of a valuable employee, both to our department, but now not only to our department, but people all over the state rely on his wisdom about administering Canvas. Seattle Central was one of the first colleges in the state to adopt Canvas. And so a lot of other colleges have sort of been watching the first colleges to see, what's happening to them before I try it. Well, we're the what's happening to them people. We're the let's jump in and see how deep the water is. And then we share out. We tell people, here's what happened to us. And other colleges are able to avoid problems. Avoid problems as a result. And it's a great thing. And it's helped this employee, and it's helped our college, and it's helped the system. I recently had to hire an instructional designer. And the people who came to me for this instructional design position, several of them specifically mentioned in the interview, I applied at Seattle Central because I want to work with you. How did they know me? Not because I actually had met many of them, but because they followed me on Twitter, because they read my blog, and they thought that they wanted to work in a place where people were thinking like I thought. They came to Seattle Central not because of the fabulous of Seattle Central, which we can all acknowledge, but because they also wanted to work with me, because I share. Third quick example. I have an employee, I just took over continuing ed. These people have had a hard time, not been very well supported. I really wanted to establish some trust with these employees. Have you guys read The Speed of Trust? If you haven't, read that book. But it's really important to establish some good trust relationships with people. And one of the things that I did was I saw a great example of some work by one of my employees, one of my new employees, and I tweeted out about it. I knew she wasn't on Twitter, so I sent it to her in an email. And said, I just want to acknowledge this great work that you're doing. And I want to let you know that I let a bunch of other people know, because you rock. And she was just so pleased that not only had I acknowledged that great work, but that I felt compelled to share her great work with others, and that began to establish a stronger relationship between us. So your management game can really improve by sharing, by recognizing the work of others, by getting it out there. You gotta do it. I totally recommend it. So get out there and give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you.